Hello and welcome to Open and Shut Book Reviews. My name is Ken. Thanks for joining me. We're going to be talking about a book called Killing Commendatore by Haruki Murakami. The novel is set in Japan in the Odawara region, which is famous for the Odawara Castle. There it is right there. Pretty looking. If we ever get over to Japan, we're going to have to go check that out, I think. It's a very interesting novel. This is the second novel I've reviewed in the last 2 weeks that has a lot to do with art. That wasn't intentional on my part, but there it is. So let's go ahead and I'll tell you my list of main characters that I think are worth pointing out to you. So the first one is, of course, our unnamed 36-year-old portrait artist who is very good at painting portraits. People see them and say that there's some quality about them that's intangible, but they feel like there's a great depth of meaning the way he paints people, and so he has quite a reputation as being good at it, but he doesn't like doing it. The other notable character is a guy named Menshiki. He's a mysterious neighbor. No one knows a whole lot about him, and he makes the narrator an offer he can't refuse to paint his portrait. The other main character of note is Masahiko Amada. That's his art school friend who's letting him crash at his father's place. And Tomohiko Amada being the famous Japanese painter in the story and the owner of the house that the narrator moves into during the separation from his wife. The main character is a 36-year-old portrait artist who is never named throughout the entire book. And he's a very skilled portrait artist, but he doesn't really like painting portraits. He does it for a living, and then one day his wife sits him down and says, I think we should live apart. So they do. He leaves. He kind of drives around Japan. He does it for about 2 months. He just drives from place to place, hotel to hotel, just wandering, basically. Calls his agent, says, I'm not going to paint portraits anymore. I'm done. He has no idea what to do with himself next. When he kind of comes to his senses, his friend from art school says, well, I know that you and your wife are separated and you have no place to stay. My father is in a nursing home. He's being cared for. He's got advanced dementia, but his house is vacant, and I'm really uncomfortable with it being vacant. You are very welcome to stay there. So in a nutshell, the plot is that the narrator is living at the house. He discovers a painting by Tomohiko Amada that has never been seen before as far as he knows. He's never run across it in any of the books that have been written about Tomohiko Amada. He's never seen it in any of the collected works that have been featured in various magazines, trade publications, that kind of thing. So he's kind of excited to find this undiscovered painting, but unwrapping that painting sets off a chain of events that lead to his whole world basically being turned upside down, and things that shouldn't be real become real, maybe? I mean, this whole thing gets very strange very quickly. There are other, I guess we could call them significant characters, but to introduce them to you would feel like a spoiler for me. So those are the characters that I'm going to say are the three characters that are the most important as you begin the story. Anyway, let's put it that way. So some random thoughts about the book. I really enjoyed it. I thought that the scene where him and his wife are talking about separating was quintessentially Japanese, and that's just from the very little I know about Japanese culture, from just what I've read and seen online, so not very much, but they were both extremely calm during the conversation. There was no shouting, there was no yelling. It was just it just felt like a very Japanese thing. It was very low key. There's a section where the narrator discusses or flashes back on how he became claustrophobic, and the way it happened in the book is really interesting, I thought, and it kind of reminded me of the head wound phobia that my wife used to have, where she would see a head wound on screen, or even just an insinuated head wound where you didn't actually see any blood and gore, but you saw the person point a gun to their temple and then pull a trigger, and then suddenly the camera cuts away. even that would just cause an instant physical reaction in her where she would just get all panicky, her heart would start racing, and it was really, yeah, it took her a while to get past that. I actually got her through an entire screening of the movie The Deer Hunter while she had that phobia, because I am that good. I researched all the places where she would have to be worried about that, and told her, okay, cover your eyes now. And anyway, I got her through the entire movie. As far as Murakami's writing style, it felt a little all over the place. It was a big mashup to me of a bunch of different styles. It greatly reminded me of Bret Easton Ellis, he of Less Than Zero and American Psycho fame, because there's a lot of inner monologue. And there ends up being a lot of dialogue too, but at the very beginning especially, there's a lot of inner monologue, and that always reminds me of Bret Easton Ellis. And it gets spooky fairly quickly. By chapter 7, the tension really starts mounting in the paranormal arena. I mean, if you took Edgar Allan Poe, Neil Gaiman, and David Lynch and got them together in a room and they were all drinking and then have them write a story, it might have resembled something like this. If you're a fan of opera music and classical music, the narrator spends a lot of time listening to classical albums and albums of operas, and so you might recognize some of the names of these. There's a little bit more I want to talk to you about, but for this, it's definitely going to necessitate us going over to the spoiler couch. Okay, so I actually was a little sad when the narrator reveals in the last chapter, basically the epilogue, that the house that he stayed in, Tomohiko Amada's house, burns down. So much happens in that house. It's such a character in and of itself, and the thought of it burning down, I was really sad. I mean, I could picture, the loss of all the records. He had this huge collection of classical music records and opera records, and his studio, the studio that he painted all his paintings in and painted Killing Commendatore in. And then the loss, of course, of the paintings themselves, both Killing Commendatore and A Man in the White and the Subaru Forester. Those are both gone, and maybe it's probably a good thing that the Subaru Forester painting is gone. And then the other thing is that I love the character of the Commendatore. He was great. I love the way he spoke. And I think it would be great to have long philosophical discussions with him. He's one of my favorite characters now. He's kind of bundled together somehow in my mind with Owen Meany from the book A Prayer for Owen Meany, which is another good book that you should definitely read. Let's go back over here now. So that's it. That's my 2 cents on this one. I really did enjoy it. If you're bashful about sex scenes, there are a few of them, and they're pretty detailed. They're not exactly raunchy. I don't know how I feel about them. They are what they are, I guess. They're apparently raunchy enough that if you're under 18 in Hong Kong, you cannot buy this book, and you can't even borrow it from the library. As always, I'll go ahead and put links in the description down below where you can buy the various copies of this book. If you have any questions or any books you'd like me to review, go ahead and send them to me, ken@don'tpunishpain.com. And once again, thanks for stopping by. Until next time, I'm Ken McKim. You take care and read more books.